Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to We the People podcast. I'm the host, Brett Maurer. So, this week we are going to discuss some interesting things. For those who follow politics and watch the news, you know that a lot of things have been happening in the last month or so since 2020 has ended. Actually, even since the election, the whole month of December and so far January has been quite interesting in the political realm. And recently, this week, we experienced something that a lot of us never thought we would ever see in our lifetime. And, a lot of times I've brought up that as people, we're always looking to experience history in person. We want to be part of the narrative that is left behind. It's everybody's kind of goal to be either remembered in history for something or to be able to turn to their grandkids and say, this is what happened, this is where I was, things like that. And this past week, we all had to experience um, something that I don't even necessarily know would be considered the history you want to remember or the history you want to be a part of. So this past week, we saw a large gathering of American citizens, if at this point that's how we can refer to them, break through the barricaded doors and windows of the Capitol building. We saw these people climb the scaffolding and the building itself and almost completely occupy the building. So, for those who don't know, this past week, Congress, the House and the Senate, both make up the Congress. Congress met to make official the count of Electoral College points given to each candidate from the previous election. For those who don't know, Joe Biden won the majority of the Electoral College points, and he is now considered the presidential elect. And to certify him as the next president, Congress has to certify that those Electoral College points are being acknowledged by the U.S. government and taken as results for the election. And that is what Congress was meeting to do. Going into this meeting of the Senate and the House, we knew that there was a great majority of Republicans in the Senate and Republicans in the House that were going to vote against the Electoral College points for certain states, such as Arizona, Pennsylvania, any of the states that were pretty much really close and contested there at the end for a few days. They were going to vote against certifying those points and call for lack of better term, an investigation into those points. More, they were looking for the states to go back over all of their votes and recount and certify that that was their electors' decisions for those states. But when Congress convened, there happened to be protests occurring outside of the Capitol building. And these protests had started the night before Congress was even supposed to meet. These protesters had come from a rally led by the president. In this rally, the president discussed that Congress was going to be certifying these results. And he explained to his supporters at this rally in the crowd that they were going to march on Capitol Hill. At this rally, Trump addressed his supporters and basically incited those who were in attendance to march and storm on Capitol Hill. This was called the Save America Rally. And Trump, at one point during this rally, said for his supporters to, quote, "stop the steal." This, of course, was in reference to the election. And for those who don't know, the president is continuing to claim that the election is fraudulent and being stolen by Joe Biden and his supporters. And with telling his followers to stop the steal, he urged them to head to the Capitol and demonstrate in a protest, in a rally against Congress certifying Joe Biden as the presidential elect. And at one point during this rally, the crowd even started chanting, "Fight for Trump." This rally was held about an hour or so before Congress started to arrive to meet in their chambers. And you know, it's difficult because here we have a president who is encouraging his supporters to go and not even necessarily protest, because we've had presidents speaking on protesting and things like that before. That's not the issue. The issue with this is we have a president who was encouraging them to go and fight, to go and start something. And the way I justify that is the crowd chanted "Fight for Trump" over and over and over again. And Trump's response to that was, "Thank you." Now, you can take fight however you want to. You can translate fight in whatever way you choose. But with his supporters, commonly for the last 4 years, we have seen that fighting for Trump, in reference to his base, literally means fighting. So instead of speaking out to them and saying we need to act peacefully, we need to speak out against, the decisions that we're unhappy with, he just let them go and encouraged them to do what they deemed necessary. What's even more interesting is that at one point, Trump did say in this rally that he was going with them. He himself was going to march with them on the Capitol. And it definitely wouldn't be the first time that a political official has marched with a group of American citizens who are unhappy about anything. And once again, the issue isn't that these people were peacefully protesting and marching and gathering. The issue is that after following the orders of the president and marching and protesting at the Capitol, when Congress began their debates about whether to approve or not to approve the certification of victory for President-elect Joe Biden, the people decided to attack the Capitol. And, attack is a strong word, and people are going to disagree with me when I use the word attack, but that's what it was. This group of individuals, these demonstrators, broke out the windows of the Capitol building because they could not get through the doors. They crawled into the Capitol through the windows. After they got in through the windows, the doors got opened. They then took control of the Capitol Rotunda. They then took control of the Senate chambers. Now, mind you, senators and the vice president were in these chambers. They were beginning their debates when the vice president had to be ushered out by Secret Service. And all the other senators had to either be ushered out of the building or taken into the chambers of the House of Representatives so that they could duck and cover, or sent back to their offices so they could be locked in and hide under their desks. The Capitol Police were greatly outnumbered. And this is a known fact, okay? This is information that was given to us as soon as this started happening. The reporters were getting information from the Capitol Police saying they were outnumbered, they needed help. Secret Service barricaded the doors to the House of Representative chambers with House of Representative members and Senate members and press members and Congress staffers all locked inside, hiding under desks, as Secret Service sat, guns drawn, on a barricaded door. Other political figures and members of their teams and reporters were locked in the private offices in the Capitol building. Once again, hiding under desks, barricading the doors. And these demonstrators broke through. They pushed into the Capitol. They took control of the rotunda. They took control of the Senate floor, even stopping to pose and take pictures at the podium, in the speaker's chair, taking pictures of the documents that were laid out on desks during these proceedings that had been left as political figures were ushered out for their safety. They then went about breaking into some of the private offices. And they broke into more than one. But the most significant one they broke into was House Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi's office. They broke into Nancy Pelosi's office, went through her mail, went through official political documents, government documents, sat in her chair and took pictures as if it was a joke. In fact, there are pictures going around that you can see of some of these proud individuals holding her mail that they took as some form of souvenir or battle trophy. You can see pictures of a gentleman with his feet up on her desk. You can see pictures of people sitting in other offices and chambers taking pictures of the different official documents. Windows were broken out, doors were broken down, graffiti was sprayed on doors and walls. And in fact, even some of the demonstrator signs were left in offices. The Capitol Police fought back against the invaders, trying to keep them out of the House chambers and out of the halls where some private offices were, in order to protect the individuals that were inside the Capitol before the invasion started. Some of the individuals hiding out in private offices and even in the House chambers were given gas masks because Capitol Police had to release tear gas within the Capitol building, in the rotunda. Tear gas was released inside the U.S. Capitol building, inside our Capitol building. Tear gas. If that sentence alone does in no way make you feel disgusted or ashamed, then I don't know if you can truly call yourself an American or even a patriot for that matter. I want you to think about that. How many times have you watched a movie like, I don't know, Olympus Has Fallen, or even those of you who watched the TV show Designated Survivor? How did it feel watching those and seeing the destruction of our nation, seeing the destruction of our government, our institutions, our monuments? You know, I can remember back to when I first saw Olympus Has Fallen, and I was so excited to see it. I thought the cast was great. It was going to be an epic storyline. And then, right when everything started happening, the Capitol building explodes. There is smoke billowing out from under that gorgeous white dome, coming in between those big white columns. Then, at one point, we see the front of the White House blown open. Once again, smoke pouring out of the White House. We see them throw the flag off of the roof. Part of the White House is destroyed. You know, or even just watching it and seeing gunfights inside of the White House. That is gut-wrenching. That's heartbreaking. And that may just be for me. You know, I am a political science and history fanatic. So maybe that's just me, but for anybody who wants to see this nation succeed, who wants to see it grow and become, it's just crushing. And, you know, what's even worse is that nothing happened. Nothing was done. These people invaded the Capitol, spraying graffiti or breaking down doors, breaking out windows, attacking guards. As we know, there are many police officers and Capitol guards who are now injured, and we wish them a fast recovery. We hope that they are okay. They will make it through okay. We're praying for them and their families. But nothing happened. No backup came for a long time. Capitol Police tried to hold the Capitol. They held what they could. They held the House chambers for as long as they could. They released tear gas inside of the Capitol. In fact, I saw a video of protesters, and this video was taken by someone in the group, chasing an officer, chasing a Capitol Police officer who kept turning around and trying to get them to stop, brandishing some form of nightstick as his self-defense against a whole group of people. Eventually, DC police arrived. Now, the DC police and the DC fire department had locked down the streets around the Capitol building after this had begun. And if you go back and look at some of the videos from the news when they were showing you aerial pictures, you can see the roadblocks that are set up to try and keep people out of the district so that they could secure it. I saw live footage on the news, the DC police arriving and having to go in through the back of the Capitol building because they couldn't get in anywhere else. DC police finally showed up, and they gave the Capitol Police backup, and they were able to push demonstrators out of the Senate chambers and the private office halls. And they were able to confine the outbreak to just the rotunda. But what is insane is the fact that there was no military influence, there was no National Guard, there was no Department of Homeland Security. I don't know what the exact time of arrival is, but if something happens near the White House or any other government facility in Washington, D.C., there is supposed to be a group of military officials, or rather soldiers, or police or Secret Service, some form of backup security that is able to arrive on scene quickly in order to contain the situation. Once again, I go back to Olympus Has Fallen. One of the characters makes a comment about it takes, whatever it was, 3 to 5 minutes for this armed battalion to arrive at the White House. I'm sure that's not a true timeline. But think about that. For anybody who's been to Washington, D.C., you know there are constantly fighter jets that fly over the city. There's constantly police helicopters and military helicopters that fly over the city. In fact, when I was there, one of the times I was there, I saw an actual military patrol vehicle with soldiers in it, just driving around a couple blocks, part of their normal routine. So why was nobody at the Capitol? Department of Homeland Security, FBI, anybody. Nobody arrived. Nobody showed up. Department of Homeland Security is supposed to be the one that, gets there when anything happens. I think they were one of the first on scene when the Pentagon was attacked on 9/11. In fact, I think they may have been one of the first on the scene when the Boston bombing occurred. Or even for that matter, when the Oklahoma City bombing occurred. But they couldn't be where they needed to be for an invasion of the Capitol building. And that's what this was. This was an invasion. People can't say this was a peaceful protest. This wasn't peaceful. Police officers were attacked, pepper sprayed, beaten. National Guard members were attacked, beaten. And once again, we hope that those that are in the hospital recover quickly. One of the protesters was shot. Because they would not listen to the Secret Service and Capitol Police, who told them to stop trying to break down the doors of the House chambers. In fact, you can see pictures and videos of this, of Secret Service barricading the doors to the House chambers, holding drawn guns on the chambers, with people peeking through the windows that had been broken out in the doors, chanting, "Let us in." This is sickening. And people keep wanting to go back and draw it back to some of the other violent insurrections that have happened in the past year. I think the most recent one that I saw, somebody drew comparison of this to Seattle or Portland or one of the other protests that had gotten violent over one of the many killings that had occurred in 2020. And you know what? The only similarity you can draw there is violence. And I don't encourage violence. If you want to protest, you do it peacefully. That's fine. And do I understand that sometimes protesters are pushed to a point where things get out of hand? Yes, I do. I do understand that. But that's not what happened, in Washington. People were not attacked in Washington until the protesters broke it through at the Capitol. You want to know when people got attacked in Washington? After they had stormed into the Capitol. That's when people got attacked. That is when cops started fighting. That is when people started fighting the cops. When they were outside chanting, waving their flags, hooting and hollering, nobody got hurt. But as soon as they got through the doors of the Capitol, when they were told not to enter, when they were outside the Capitol chanting, "Let us in," before they broke out the windows, when they broke through, that was when people got hurt. Now, other people are talking about how it is your right to rise up against the government. It is your right to speak out against the government. It is your right to take up arms against the government. But it is not your right in any way, shape, or form. And I will argue this with anyone. I don't care who you are. You could be the best constitutional law professor out there. I will argue this with you till the day I die. You do not have any right to try and stop the legal constitutional proceedings of certifying a constitutionally elected official, and you do not have the right to stop the constitutional peaceful transfer of power. Notice what I said right there. Basically, what I said right there is you do not have the right to go against the Constitution. You have the right to act within the Constitution. You have the right to act in defense of the Constitution. You have the right because of the Constitution. You do not have the right to act against it. No one has that right. And the people who do act against the Constitution, we go to war with them. We've done it countless times. Countless times. We did it in the 1800s. We did it before we even had a constitution, when we knew what it meant to turn around and be free. And that point draws me to the last thing I wanted to talk about this situation. Seeing images of the Confederate flag inside of the White House. As a history fanatic, that crushed me. And you know, as an American, that should crush you. You can claim all you want that the Confederate flag is your heritage. All you're saying is that your heritage is a bunch of traitorous racists. And I don't give two craps who that offends. I really don't. Because it's true. It's 100% true. The Confederacy became a thing because the southern states didn't want to get rid of their slaves. They wanted to keep the institution of slavery continuing for generations. They didn't want slavery to end. And they weren't even trying to end slavery at first in the 1800s. No, they were just trying to end slave trade, meaning you couldn't buy new ones. If you had them, you had them. But once they were gone, they were gone. But then the South said, we don't want to do that. The South broke off. They renounced our Constitution. They started their own. They became their own nation. They were no longer the United States of America. They were the Confederate States of America, a whole separate nation. Just like we did to Britain. We were no longer the British colonies of America. We were the United States of America, the United Colonies of America. A whole separate nation. Had we lost that war, had we lost the Revolutionary War, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, Samuel Adams, I can continue, all would have been hung or shot as traitors. Period. Traitors. Period. They were traitors to the English crown, 100%. And to this day, they are traitors to the English crown. But they won. So they became heroes to the American nation. Had the Confederacy won? Who knows? Maybe Abraham Lincoln would have been considered the traitor. Ulysses S. Grant. General Sherman. all these figures, maybe they would have been the traitors. But they didn't lose. The United States was victorious. The Confederate States of America lost. Another nation that attacked the United States lost. They were the traitors. They were the aggressors. And it's true. Now, of course, we'll make the exception because there was the whole forgive the Confederate cause that happened when they started letting people swear their fealty to the Constitution so they didn't go to prison or weren't killed. Fine, but quit flying their damn flag. Really? We don't fly Britain's flag. And you can't say it's not the same thing, because it is. That would be like if we went to England and Buckingham Palace was flying the American flag over it. America was traitors to the British. Period. We became our own nation, and we fought back. The Queen of England doesn't go around wearing an American flag jacket. She doesn't have an American flag on her limo license plate. You don't see any Parliament members wearing it on a baseball cap. But in America, we seem to think it's okay to take that flag of a treasonous nation, the Confederate States of America, and fly it on military outposts, on our cars, on our homes, above government buildings. Or at least we did. Because that was taken away in 2020. One of the good things to come out of 2020 was the military saying we're not flying any more Confederate shit. Even NASCAR, the redneck capital of the world, they said, we're done. And to see that flag walking around inside the White House, or I'm sorry, inside the Capitol building, my God. Could you imagine walking past the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, walking past the statue in Statuary Hall of Abraham Lincoln, walking over the plaque on the floor that says Abraham Lincoln's desk sat here when he was a senator, while carrying a Confederate flag? That would be like laying a British flag over George Washington's grave at Mount Vernon. That is just gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, depressing, and unacceptable. I am not old enough to remember the events of 9/11. I'm old enough to have seen the videos years after it happened, still felt the shock and the terror and the sadness, but I didn't see it live. I saw it when I could stop the video and calm down and go back to it. I saw it when our teachers would pause it to explain what was happening. I didn't have to see it and feel the fear and uncertainty of what was going on. And I'm grateful for that, because I've seen that too many times in my lifetime. I saw that with Sandy Hook. I saw that with the Boston bombing. And so many others. So many other times I've seen that. And this time, watching this, I knew exactly what everybody felt like. It's always been explained to me that the feeling when the first plane hit the tower was different than the second. The first time, nobody knew what had happened if it was an accident, but the second plane was the nail in the coffin. They knew exactly what was going on. And I've never in my life been able to understand that. Because me looking back, me who has seen the videos and told what was going to happen before the video was started, I always went, how could they not know? How would nobody go, this is a terrorist attack? How would they think this was an accident? But there have been events over my life now that I understand. Because there is so much confusion when it starts, and then the fear sets in, and that's it. There's no way out from there. The feeling that everybody had when that second plane hit the tower was a feeling of, oh my God, this is happening. I cannot believe this. We need to call our loved ones, make sure everybody's okay. That was the exact feeling. That feeling of what's going to happen next. Are they going to hit us again next? Where are they going to strike? What can we do? How do we stay safe? How do we help people? Everybody's felt those feelings. Everybody felt those feelings when Sandy Hook happened. How could somebody do this to little kids? How? How did this happen? How did they get in? At this point, we've seen so many school shootings, nobody feels that anymore. You hear about a school shooting on the news, it's just become no different than somebody getting jumped at a Target. You just go in your head, well, it's not the school my kid's at, so I don't care. You felt that with the Boston bombing, when everybody stood still and watched the television as cop cars and SWAT tanks rolled up and down the streets of one of the most historic cities in the nation. There were armored tanks in front of Paul Revere's house. You all felt that when we saw them standing there outside that boat, waiting to go in and get the kid. And I'm sure some of you even felt that way when the Parkland shooting happened, the Orlando shooting, countless others, Vegas. But I bet none of you can ever say, up until this week, that you had ever seen America attacked at its government center by its own people. Because that's what this was. This was an attack done by our own people. And it was disgusting. It was disheartening, gut-wrenching. I'm sorry. Do I think it's okay to attack and burn down a Target in the name of the Black Lives Matter protest? No, I don't think that's okay. But you can't draw a comparison to that with what happened in DC. Because it wasn't a Target. It was the Capitol building. The Capitol building with all of our elected political officials. For God's sake, I put money on it that every single person has either known someone who has worked there or been there themselves on a 8th grade DC trip or whatever. Most of us have walked in those halls, seen the statues, seen the plaques in the floor, looked up at that big dome, the big gorgeous painting in the dome on the ceiling. Most of us have seen that. Most of us have been there. Most of us have been in there. And we watched on television our own people break in and attack it and attack law enforcement officers like it was a damn movie. Because had you seen that scene in a movie, you'd be going, when does Gerard Butler get here and start kicking ass? It was disgusting. It was unacceptable. If you defend the events from yesterday, you are not American. You are not. I know people have already begun to get arrested. In fact, I think I read earlier that more people had died now from their injuries sustained at this event. It's shameful. It's unacceptable. So that's going to be it for this podcast. I'm going to have another podcast that's coming out, hopefully Sunday night. This podcast will be about the last time the Capitol building was stormed and taken hostage. You can find this upcoming podcast in the history section on our page. And this will be the first podcast where I have a guest host. So Sunday night, Monday morning, whenever you get to it, please tune in and listen to myself and soon-to-be graduate Cole Holliday, who is a history major at Holy Cross College in Notre Dame, Indiana. And for those who don't know, yes, Notre Dame, the university, Fighting Irish, they are their own city in the state of Indiana. So I will be with Cole Holliday tomorrow discussing the War of 1812, specifically Britain's invasion of Washington, D.C. and the Capitol building. So make sure you hit that bell so you get notifications when new videos are uploaded. Hit the like, subscribe, share button, and hopefully I will see everybody next time.